one of the things that you're known for, Hamish, is your ability to think what's going to happen next in the global world of technology. How is that landscape changing, and what should we expect? So I think it'd be remiss of me not to ask you, what are you most excited about as you look forward from now in terms of the technology landscape?
Well, I think we have to distinguish between what I'm excited about as a human being, of what can happen and what can happen for my kids and grandkids, and what even may happen in our lifetimes in sort of healthcare and other matters, to what's probably nearer in the investment universe. And the investment universe is both things that are very positive, creating the tailwinds where we may be investing, and things that could be deeply disruptive to other areas we may invest in. Still, if we have a look what's going on in that advertising space, there's still huge unmet markets, obviously with a lot of regulatory risk at the moment. Cloud computing is something that I think is in its very, very early stages, and the size of the addressable markets are probably in the $1 trillion sort of level. Wow. And there's some very, very large players who are going to effectively own the world's computing infrastructure. And there's probably only be 4 players, maybe a player out of China, and maybe 3 big players in the West. And we're very, very early on in that side of things, and that's growing at around 50% a year. At the moment, it's obviously going to slow down. There's laws of large numbers, but we're very, very early on in the penetration. And even when it ultimately ends taking market share from sort of on-premise infrastructure, that could continue growing in line with world GDP, which is a very, very rare commodity ultimately. So that's something that there's other areas that I'd say we're early stages, but could be absolutely breakthroughs in the next 10 years. Quantum computing would be an area that I think will be a game changer in terms.
Can I ask you how so? How do you think that concept is totally unfamiliar to me? So. Quantum computing.
Well, quantum computing is effectively using quantum mechanics so the moment computers are all on-off switches on a silicon semiconductor infrastructure, where quantum computing is effectively where the on-off switches exist in the same state simultaneously. The laws of quantum mechanics, which means the computations that a computer can do are orders and orders of magnitude beyond what any form of solid state semiconductors could do. And with that, we could model out any molecule in the world and understand how it operates. We could really get into genome sequencing and really start to understand the human genome. In cryptography, you could break any cryptography in the world. It's quite frightening for which company which country could get there the first. Of what you could think about writing in sort of computer programming and understanding how the complexities of the world work and break through new medicines and things that the mind can't even think about at the moment. And I think we're probably maybe 10 years away from having a functional. We've got sort of non-functional quantum computers out of labs at the moment, but a functional quantum computer and then accelerating of our understanding of the universe and our understanding of molecules and medicine and mathematics here, purely what computers don't have the grunt to do at the moment. So, and there are a number of companies who have got very, very deep research. You know, I would say the leader is probably Google at the moment in terms of private enterprise. IBM's got large labs. Microsoft's got large labs. We've got large university labs in Australia, University of New South Wales and University of Sydney, and universities around the world. So there's massive research going into this. Into this area, but it's not just technology. The reason we're not just investing in technology because it's technology. It's because of the business models that have been created and the structural growth as they start disrupting industries and taking massive market share. And it also starts getting us thinking about areas which we may want to avoid. I'm pretty sanguine about investing in banks.
Okay.
I think we're at the front end of their business models being disrupted. Obviously, we've seen what Facebook announced the other day with Libra, but you're going to get huge amounts of financial disruption in the banking system. If we look out a decade, if you look at the power of what Amazon's doing in the world and what Facebook's doing in the world, the ability of new brands to come up and get distributed in completely new ways, traditional brands start getting disrupted in the world. So we think on opportunity and risks on the side of what technology can enable.
It sounds like that the quantum computing might be the personal excitement still being 10 years away, but it's kind of like the optionality of owning Alphabet shares, for example.
Well, you could have the optionality of owning Alphabet or Microsoft, for instance, but closer to home is there's three big players in the world who own the cloud computing infrastructure of the world. One is Amazon Web Services, and we don't own Amazon, but we own large positions in Microsoft and Alphabet. Microsoft owns the Azure platform, and the Google Cloud platform is obviously owned by Alphabet. I would say that's nearer term in terms of what's going to be very material in their profitability in the next 10 years. I don't think quantum computing is going to be material to any of these companies, and it's very hard to predict who will have the winning quantum computing sort of infrastructure in the world. But I'm saying for humanity, breaking that equation and what it opens up is profound.